Greetings, everyone. It's Mark and Ann, and we are back for a very special live show. Ann and I have been talking, and this is a very heartfelt, compassionate side. It's the Caregiver Chronicles series that we're going to start putting a heavy emphasis on. So we're going to have on our show today, who's that, Ann?
Hey, everybody. We have Deena Attia today. Deena has been through this with her mom and been through dementia, Alzheimer's diagnosis. And she's going to talk with us today about her story. So you're going to find in listening to Deena that she has a real passion for for what she's been through. She's a very enthusiastic person. The first time I spoke with her, you could just tell that she's very, she just radiates positive energy. I am sure in everything that she does. Actually, in her background, she loves fitness and wellness. She is a dancer, which I would just dearly love to talk with her about because I love dancing. But she loves to travel. She finds inspiration in running and dancing and just activities that keep her moving. And you're going to hear that in her voice when you meet her.
Fantastic. And I met Deena. We are both Rotarians with the Peachtree City Rotary, and we had someone from one of the all-time Alzheimer's groups come and speak.
Yeah.
And so Deena had mentioned something about her mom, so invited her to come on and share her story, and here she is. So without further ado, Ann, let's kick this off and let's get this show going.
All right.
Well, Deena, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi. How are you doing today?
On this gloomy day, I'm trying to make the best of things, and happy that we're going to get some rain soon.
Absolutely, it is kind of overcast and dreary.
Oh, so it's been raining here. I live in Middle Georgia, Deena. I don't live up in the Atlanta area. It's been raining here all day, just a steady drizzle.
Yeah.
So glad to see it. Yeah.
So it's a perfect day for a podcast, right? So again, thank you for joining Ann and myself on this. So to kick things off, just tell us a little bit about yourself and whatever comes to your heart to share a little bit about yourself. So.
Sure. Present day, I work for Resurgence Orthopedics, which is right in line with the fact that I do love to stay active. I do believe that is an important part of staying healthy, physically. So, brain wise, we have to stay active. And so to work for a company that promotes an active lifestyle and helps people get back to what they do, I feel like it's very fitting. I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
And a personal level, I am a writer. I started out writing more about health and wellness, and then it just kind of went on from there. I have all kinds of interesting topics that I've written about, had the chance to interview some really, interesting people. And that is something that is my creative outlet. And again, it's something that I feel is very important to, keep me stimulated and keep my brain sharp.
All right.
Which you'll understand why it's so important as we go on.
Yeah. And every once in a while we'll have some little technical glitches, and that's what goes on with doing these shows. Is your phone on Wi-Fi or is it on the cellular service?
It is on Wi-Fi.
Okay. Maybe try just turning off the Wi-Fi. Maybe that'll stop some of the buffering. Let's see if that helps.
And so it goes when you do live shows.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of it. Hey, Joe Rogan was doing a show the other day.
Perfect. That's better.
Okay.
He was doing a show with JD Vance, and his mic went out. So even happens to Joe Rogan. So
Yeah, there we go.
but so that fixed it. So I appreciate
Yeah.
that. So I'll tell you what, everybody just take a deep breath, because we're going to be getting into some very deep emotional topic here, but I think it's very important that we be real. And Ann has lost her mother. My mom has been home with hospice, as many of you may know from past shows, but I always bring it up because it's real. That's where we are at the stage of our life with our family. So I'm going through the experiences of seeing things and having to try to adapt and to adjust. And I think Deena and Ann, you both can agree that when you're going through it with a loved one, it's sort of like trial by fire. You don't know the emotion that you're going to experience until you're facing that current situation, because it's always uh, waves coming in on the beach. It crashes and it goes out. So it's an ebb and flow of emotions. And one day is one thing, and the next day it's something else. And then you start losing that person that you've always known, and you're seeing them become someone you don't know. So what I want to kind of do is step away a little bit. And since Ann, you've been through it more deeply with your mom, and you have lost your mom, and Deena, you have lost your mom. I haven't experienced that side of it. So just kind of carry some conversation. And Ann, what would you like to, ask
Yeah,
Deena to kick off the
absolutely. Yes.
conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Deena and I spoke on the phone when we first spoke, Deena, and I'd love for you just to kind of share some of what you shared with me, which was the beginning of when you started to see changes with your mom. And let's just talk a little bit about how that unfolds.
Sure. Initially it was my mother would tell me stories that just didn't seem to make sense.
Yeah.
And of course, you want to believe your mother. You don't want
Mm,
to question her.
Yeah.
But over time, she was telling me these things. I'm like, this just doesn't this seems out of character for this person that she's talking about. Um, and I just kind of dismissed it. And then there was some days that I would notice some other signs as well. But I think what I really couldn't ignore was my daughter's 4th birthday. We were at Chuck E. Cheese for a birthday party, and I took pictures. And my mother,
Well, bless you for that. I'm just going to say
my mother,
for Chuck E. Cheese.
right? That's what you do for your 4-year-old. But my mother, vacant look, expression on her face, and her
Mhm.
were just there's no life to them.
mm,
And I thought that's just odd. That alarms me.
mm. And how old was your mom at this point?
So she was in her early 60s. My mother was 6
Wow.
years old when she passed away.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was about 5 years, from when we noticed to when she passed away.
And
And
what specific diagnosis did she have?
Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. So it took a long time to be able to talk about it. That's the thing that if I would have had the courage to talk about it sooner, then maybe we could have, had a different result. Maybe we could have had her on medication earlier. That would have.
Right.
Okay.
And
And sorry for interrupt, but
no.
just this is what's important about having open conversations of those that find themselves maybe in that same spot. Do you think some of it was denial and fear because you didn't want the answer? So I'm going to avoid this and it'll go away.
That is absolutely how I handle things like that.
Yeah.
But you're not alone. I mean, you are not
Right.
alone in that. And that's, as Mark said, the importance of having these conversations, because I have seen, as a nursing home administrator, I have seen countless families that, we would in the office area, not in front of a family, certainly, but, we would be in an office area and we would say, they are so in denial of where their mom was, or their father, or, just their loved one. And because we could see it from the outside and we'd seen it so many times. But families don't. I think it goes right back to what you're saying. You want to believe your mom. That's your mom or your dad.
Well, you don't want to believe
you don't want
happening.
you don't want to think that that's happening, and
Yeah.
you try to make it fit somewhere. And then you realize one day that it's really not going to fit there,
Well, let's break it down just a little bit further. So you said, how old was your daughter?
So my daughter was 4 at the time.
So 4. Okay. And so when you start noticing those things, and now looking back, and maybe someone else watches this and they're at that same point that you were at, to where, like, I'm noticing some things, but I don't like what I'm noticing. So I'm going to pretend this don't exist. So I'm going to shove it under the rug and I'm going to continue going on about life. But looking back, like you said, man, what coulda, woulda, shoulda, so what was that like, to where, how much time went by to where you finally had the ability to stuff the fear and go, okay, I've got to peel back this curtain and look at this?
Well, I tell you, it's all a blur, but I can say that one evening in January, I was at my neighbor's house and speaking with her about it, because she had just bothered to Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And I couldn't talk to anybody else about it. I couldn't talk to my husband. She was the only person that I could be open with about it. And I sat on her couch and just sobbed. I had wads of tissue, just sobbing. So that was in January. I did not have the courage to confront it until August.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was, and when you had to have that conversation.
Yeah. How did that go? What did that look like?
How did that go? How were you able to broach that subject, and how did that go?
So my mom and I were sitting out in the sunroom at my parents' house. And I told my mom, I said, listen, Mom, I'm worried. I think you might have what Grandma had.
Oh, wow.
And so I think you need to go to the doctor and get checked.
How did she react to that?
She was very nonchalant. She was like, yeah, sure. I'll schedule an appointment with the doctor. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So about 2 weeks passed, and I followed up with her. I said, Mom, have you scheduled an appointment with the doctor? Well, I've just been really busy.
Yeah.
I had to go to my dad.
Oh, okay.
She probably knew. She knew something wasn't right.
Well, she's going through her own emotions of not wanting to face it either, because she watched her own mom go through it.
Right.
What about your dad? How was he with that?
Yeah.
Was he in denial?
So it was very hard to talk to my dad, because I kept thinking about the fact that my parents married when they were 17 years old.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Or I'm going to my.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something's wrong.
Yeah.
And to the woman that he married at that age, and never, I'm sure, expected, their life to go.
Okay. See, you just opened up a whole new door for me to peer in, to where this gets so complex and it's so deep and emotional, because your father's dealing with his own observations and fears of it. Totally different relationship than you and your parents. And I share that to say, right when you said that, I had visions of watching my mom and dad, who, dad's 94, mom's 93, home with hospice, 71 years of marriage, watching him watch her, all waiting on her to die.
Well, Mark, how did, and Deena, back to what you were saying, had your dad seen signs and just kind of brushed it under the rug as well? Or did he, because I know, no offense, Mark, but I know that sometimes men don't necessarily pick up on it as quickly as a female. And especially, I think, as we grow up, as young girls, and I know my mom and I fought like cats and dogs. We did. I loved her dearly, but we fought like cats and dogs. But I think that relationship changes the older you get. And so you've got this relationship with your mom that maybe that's a different one than what your dad certainly has. But had he seen signs?
If he did, he really didn't mention it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he got her to the doctor fairly quick.
Yeah.
And, the diagnosis, they did the clock test where she couldn't draw the face of a clock.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then they, I guess, did some other tests. I didn't go to the doctor. My father took her, but I remember him telling me about that. And
So let's step forward. So once it got to the point to where you breached the subject, you push it to go to your father to try to get her to go to the doctor, and then it officially comes back. Like, okay, you have what grandma had. So what was those moments like, and what were the next couple of weeks like for that? Because again, granted, your mom was young,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, so that brings on a different dynamic. It'd be a lot harder on me if my mom was that age, but she's in her 90s. So
I was angry. I was
I
very
bet.
angry, and I was even angry with her, which
Really?
isn't rational, but
Yeah.
I thought, you know what, you could have taken better care of yourself.
Hmm.
And that's not, and it makes perfect sense, though. I mean, it goes right along with
I
everything
get that though.
that you would
I get that.
go there and feel that way. And then you are so much about health and fitness yourself. And that's undoubtedly the first thing that crossed your mind. I mean, I think it would be. So I wouldn't beat myself up for that, because you're not the first person that I've heard say that.
Yeah. And I don't want to take this down. I'm not meaning this to go down a path I'm just asking the question. Did your mom have any habits through her life? Did she take pharmaceuticals? Did she take any anxiety, depression? Was she one to go to the doctor every time something happened? What was that side of her life? The reason I'm saying that is because it's shown and proven that a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs, especially the anxiety and depression drugs and all that, does, and especially sleeping aids, does increase the odds of that. So just curious, was any of that in her past?
So my mother had high blood pressure,
Okay.
had high cholesterol. My mother also had severe scoliosis, so she was in pain. Her like to drink. She loved scotch. She loved her wine. So, and she wasn't an active person. Maybe a couple of times we hiked up the mountain at Stone Mountain, or but she wasn't, and I wasn't always an active person either. It was through watching this and through watching my grandmother, my dad's mother, who was only 55 when she passed, not of Alzheimer's. It was my mother's mother that had that. But I didn't want limitations, so I was going to change my destiny. That's what I thought, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna fight to change my destiny. And so it was all starting really in 2008. When I started to notice things with my mom, I was like, you know what? I don't want to go down that path myself.
Yeah.
So once you're processing those emotions, and there's a bunch of them, I guess the best way to ask it is, what was it like, and how long did it take to settle into the quote unquote new normal of, all right, here we go, let's buckle down? And was there a proactive approach to it as a family? Was she doing the things that she should have done to be proactive to try to help stave it off, or whatever? And what was that process like?
So I remember, we were hoping that maybe she was low on B vitamin, because I think that was one of the things that, it could have been that. Maybe that's why she was having those symptoms. Or, I remember trying to get coconut oil into her coffee. That was supposed to be good for the brain, and so she didn't like it. wouldn't drink the coffee like that. I pray for a misdiagnosis and a miracle or a miracle. I prayed all the time.
Well, with that said, and I have to go here, and there's no, I never mean anything to be offensive. Anyway, do you believe in God? Are you Christian? What is your faith?
Yes,
Okay, so
I do.
Let's go there. Did it cause you struggles with your faith?
Mark, I stopped praying.
Understand.
I really did.
I get it.
It is.
And
This is, and Deena, again, we're not trying to take you down any road that other than
don't want to go right.
Other than truly, these are the things that to me are so important for people to hear, because, the old saying, the struggle is real.
Yeah.
And it is real. And you do pray that there's some different outcome, and that maybe she is low on a vitamin and those kind of things. And really, I know that they've got studies out now that say this may pertain to it and this may pertain to it. But you know what? When I was growing up too, they came up and said sweet and low is going to give you cancer. They didn't tell you how much of it you had to take. So I don't know what really does and what really doesn't. I know there are studies out there. And I think sleep meds is really the biggest one that I see, Mark, that kind of leans toward those kind of things.
That's what happened to Donna.
But regardless, I mean, we're not, because it is so different with each person who gets diagnosed. There is no cookie cutter. This is, you have Alzheimer's disease and here's what's going to happen next. There is no playbook. There is no, this is what happens after that. This is your next stage. There are things, I know in healthcare, we have a timeline, and people would say to me, well, can I see your timeline? Well, you can, but that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen next. So moving past some of those things, because the emotions are real, and it is such a struggle to wrap your mind around what, and I would say it's no different than getting a diagnosis really of cancer in a lot of ways. It's a huge impact on your family, a huge impact. So what were the next steps that you ended up taking as a family? Now that we have the diagnosis and we know this, so where are we going? What took place with you guys?
Well, we were very fortunate that my father, was able to be her caretaker. And, and it eventually it became too difficult. And, we were fearful that what if in the middle of the night, she got up and she, tried to leave the house or whatever. So we had to make a decision to in a home.
Yeah.
But how everything unfolded, maybe this is the miracle, actually. My brother, father, and I, we were going to take her on a Thursday. Well, the day before, my father took her for her last medical appointment. And at the appointment, she became very combative and started to hit him. Mm-hmm. So I had to call the police, and then wouldn't accept her in the home anymore. I think she was
combative. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she ended up at Anchor Hospital.
Okay. Yeah.
We could not see her until Saturday. Mm-hmm. So we went to go visit her, and, clearly she was medicated. I remember she was missing a slipper. We were all sitting at the table, and, this strange man comes with her slipper, and we were like, what is she?
And let me clarify for those that don't know, Anchor Hospital is a behavioral hospital. So the reason she was sent there is because of the combativeness. And unfortunately, and this is unfortunately, I can tell you that we don't have a lot of places in the healthcare field that we can send someone that. And so what we try to do in healthcare is we try to send them somewhere like an Anchor, really for stabilization. But it is a behavioral hospital is what it is. So you've got people in there that are not necessarily diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. You have people in there who are diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia, and all of those are controlled with medication as long as they take their meds. Life's good. But yes, so she's the reason you had a stranger walking up to you with a slipper, is that's where she was in that situation, in that kind of setting.
Yeah.
So how did she do from there? Were they able to stabilize?
Well, what happened was by Monday morning, I'm not exactly sure how it happened, but she was rushed to the hospital. She aspirated. I don't know if
Gosh.
they tried to feed her breakfast or what happened, but she was in the hospital for 2 weeks. The first week she was fully sedated, and then still I was praying.
Yeah.
I remember just praying that she'd wake up and she'd be okay.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. And then of course there's conversation about, the feeding tube and, what are the next steps? And I knew that my mother did not want to be in that situation. She told me, she says, if I turn out like grandma, take me out to the yard and shoot me. I mean, she
Oh, that sounds like my mama.
Yeah.
So I knew that she didn't want that. So the last week of her life, she was in hospice.
Yeah.
And it was the most peaceful, thing that we could have done, because she was no longer connected to machines. There was no beeping going on. She was medicated to be comfortable, but I feel like maybe that was the miracle, because she didn't have to suffer. And also, I knew that her being in a home was going to be a financial strain to my father.
Yeah.
I mean, we were already discussing, Dad, if you need to, you can live with us, because that's a huge strain on somebody to pay for that care.
It is. And I'm so glad you bring that up, because that is a piece of it that people have to really consider when you start looking at this. I know, Mark, your mom's at home with hospice, with sitters. I went through that. We went through that with my mom. We went through that with my grandmother, and that will break you very quickly. It's expensive. It's more expensive now than when we went through it. So, but the financial piece that it puts on you, on your dad, when you've already got all the emotions going on, is tremendous, that people have to really look at that. But I'm also glad you brought up, you knew what your mom wanted and didn't want, which is another important conversation that people have to have, is what they do and don't want, and to have either a living will. I don't care if you get a post from somebody and fill out, that's a DNR form, have something done legally, have an attorney draw up something where you do know what their wishes are, because none of us, we don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's like Ann and I talk, and as far as when I originally started this podcast, and it was a way of trying to matter. It was a way of trying to bring resources to the table so families could see all this available in this senior living world. And being 60 myself, it becomes a very sobering thing to not only be in the industry, but to look in the mirror and see that we keep living and God gives us the days we all face it. And it's so overwhelming. And there's so many categories of, topics of conversation just with you and your family, Deena, and the things you have to go through and how it affects us spiritually. It affects us mentally. It can torpedo our faith. That gets back to why Ann and I are wanting to come more so of doing Caregiver Chronicles, so people can go, man, it's not just me having these thoughts and these emotions, because they're so raw and real. And it's important to be honest about it, because like Ann had mentioned, and I say it all the time, me in trying to deal with my emotions of what I'm watching as a son of my mom and dad, who of course raised me, and watching this is how it ends, and then to sit there and struggle with the fact of, God, why are they going through $10,000 a month for someone just to sit out there with mom just in case? And you can't help but go, that's so wrong. And then you have to make the decision of trying to get them to leave home and go into a community to try to spare them from running out of money too soon, to where then you go to where you don't have no choice. So anyway, it's a lot to deal with. And I just, encourage people that comes across this show and comes across this channel to subscribe and support the channel, and to bring awareness, because there's so many people that have gone through what Ann has gone through, and gone through what you've been through, Deena, and what I'm going through. And it's okay for us to admit, I have some things that makes me feel guilty. Like, why am I thinking that way? Why am I bitter? Why do I have animosities? Why am I questioning God? And that gets into the deep topic of trying to, look at things from a spiritual level, of trying to help us stay strong in our faith, because life gets complicated. We forget that little thing that God did that we don't understand, called free will, and that we make choices in our life, that we bring things upon ourselves. And sometimes it's having bad habits. It's a fallen world. And like you had said, Deena, you could have took better care of yourself. Why did you not? Because we do suffer the consequences of those choices, and it catches up with us. So anyway, I could ride this horse till it collapses. But is there anything that you would like to share in closing, Deena, that you'd want to give to someone from your experiences, the good, bad, and the ugly, that you could leave a nugget for someone to apply to their life, to maybe help the steps be a little bit lighter?
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage anybody that is going through this to use the resources that are available. The Alzheimer's Association, there is a line that you can call 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
If you need help with anything, you can reach out.
Yeah.
Talk to people. Don't try to hide it. It's not something to be embarrassed about. It's not, you don't have to protect your loved one. I think that's another thing I thought. I have to protect her because I don't want people to think that something's wrong with her. That was the initial thing too.
Yeah.
It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
It happens.
No.
And we all have to take care of things. What we're given. We have to deal with the cards that we've been dealt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all the different emotions.
Right.
I have something that I wrote August 13th, 2013. My mother died September 15th, 2013. And I wrote, this was how I was feeling at the time: denial, disbelief, anger, resentment, grief, acceptance, disconnect. These are phases of my experience of my mother's demise.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote it in my handwriting, and I see how, like, my handwriting was so different. I was so, distraught. But a strong, beautiful, independent, intelligent, driven woman, that was my mother. And so her be taken down.
Yeah.
I couldn't process that. My mother, my best friend, she was the love of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it is such a cruel disease.
Mhm.
And it's a disease that is truly so much harder on the family than it is on the patient, because they reach a point where they don't know.
Yeah.
And they really don't realize. And you're so right. You want to protect, and that's, that's part of it too. But there's a lot of emotions, and I do want to say, just, I know we're winding up, but I am glad you said reach out, because that's one reason that Mark and I have really done what we've done with the podcast. And the one thing that we continue to say to people is that you're not alone in this. If you don't want to call the Alzheimer's Association, call me.
Right.
I mean, my number's out there everywhere. Call me. I will talk to you. Email me. That's fine. I will call you. But Mark is available. I am available. The Alzheimer's Association is available. CareQuest Solutions is there to help people when they need to find, because I know you said your mom got combative, and then the home wouldn't take her. But there are places, and Mark and CareQuest have connections. So there are places that you can look at that, yes, people get combative, but there's also medication that helps with some of that. You went on hospice, things like that, but CareQuest can help with those kind of things. And then I'm here to help with anything else.
Yeah. And that's like, Ann, that's what we do is, we help families navigate the whole decision process of, do they need to find in-home health, in-home care? Do they need to be placed into assisted living or memory care? And we do that at no cost to the family. We are compensated by the communities we put them in. But with that said, this is not for everybody, but when something's laid on my heart, I would like to say a prayer together before we close this podcast out. So let me do that, and then we will be done.
Okay.
Dear Father God, I just want to come to you and thank you for this opportunity, for Deena to come on and join Ann and myself to really just be transparent and honest and share the experiences that she had with her mother. God, it doesn't matter how much time passes in life. Sometimes the scars are deep, and sometimes the impact on our lives is devastating, and we don't know how to find ourselves fully back to your presence of having the faith that we once thought we had, that we're able to have you come in and heal her heart, heal her mind, heal her family in any areas that it may be. And may we allow you to be God and us not to question the things that don't make sense to us, because God, there's so much that doesn't make sense to this life and the suffering and the emotions that you gave us to experience, because it is an ammunition for the enemy to come in and wreck our minds and wreck our souls. But that's not what your goal are for any of us. So I pray for healing. I pray that we lead with love with everything that we do in life. I pray for anyone that comes across this podcast that it was actually meant for them, to give them the ability to look through the lens of love. And if they don't understand it, to still look to you, to not stop praying. As easy as that is, I struggle with that myself, God. I'm able to pray and close out this show as I have hardness of my heart at times, watching my mom suffering and wondering why you don't take her home. Thank you for this opportunity to come be real. I pray that the power of the Spirit will spread this message to whomever needs it, and that we will continue to move forward and do the best we can. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank
Well,
you.
ladies, thank you so much. And so share the show, and who knows who may see it. And then hopefully I'll see you at a Rotary meeting fairly soon.
Deena, it was great meeting you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We really appreciate it.
Yep. So everybody have a good rest of your day. And until next time, it's Ann and Mark, and we'll catch you on the next show.